This is a Women with Disabilities Victoria podcast. We acknowledge that these podcasts were recorded on the traditional lands of the First Nations people of this country. We acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging. We acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded, and this is and always will be Aboriginal land. From the Outskirts is a series of podcasts featuring women with disabilities who live and work in regional Victoria. I'm Liz Wright, a disability activist and advocate. I'm also the Manager of Community Inclusion and Women's Empowerment at Women with Disabilities Victoria. All the interviews were recorded in each person's home or workplace, so from time to time there is unexpected background noise. Artist, writer, singer and presenter Sara McQueenie has lived a creative life. Co-host of the groundbreaking TV show No Limits, Sara has been instrumental in raising the profile of people with disability. Please be aware there is swearing in this episode. There is also references to mental health and anxiety, so please take care when listening, and if you need support or assistance, please call Lifeline on 13114.
Hi there, my name is Sara McQueenie, and I don't do labels anymore because I've had enough labels in my lifetime, and I'm currently on Dja Dja Wurrung land, never ceded, Indigenous people's land forever. Power to the people.
Amen. Sara, how long have you been here?
I've been here majority of my life. I left and have lived other places, Magnetic Island, Mullumbimby, Melbourne, all the M's apparently, like my name, McQueenie.
Yeah.
And they were all incredibly powerful timeframes.
In what way?
I think the experiences were profound. So now if ever I need to reset, I will always go back to Mullumbimby because it was a place of creativity and fortitude and heartfelt love and kindness from people. It was exciting because I met lots of friends that are still lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And that was, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And Magnetic Island was just bizarre.
It's a bit of a mad place, isn't it?
It is. They say it's surrounded by crystals, and so it magnetically, that's why a compass, it doesn't work. And because I'm a bit of a spiritual being, so I get there and would keep a record of my dreams and my journeys, and I love places that have lots of international people there. So Magnetic Island was that. There was, I think, 2,000 residents at the time. Again, we are talking 25, 30 years ago. And we had in the fish and chip shop was a Japanese male ballerina. I used to work in the art gallery, and that was some people from other areas in Australia that used to have possums in their bra because they worked for the wildlife area.
Oh, so little baby possums.
Little baby possums.
Feeding and looking after, yeah.
Yeah. And all of the artwork in the art gallery was made by people on the island. And when I think about it, that it was really quite parochial and rural art, but quite naive as well. And I think everybody there has a touch of genius to them. I arrived there with Virginia, a mate of mine who's now living in Norfolk in the UK. Gorgeous woman. The first time we met each other, it was like, oh my God, she's married, 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, where have you been? I've known you all my life.
Oh.
One of those meetings.
Yep.
So we had gone up to visit her friend Trouty, who was, I think it's Trouty, anyway, a woman, who was in Townsville. And then we thought, I was on holidays for a week. And I was like, let's go live in Magnetic Island for 3 months. Okay, why not? So we took the ferry across. And it was the first time I'd ever seen dolphins. So I was like, oh, this is a blessed journey.
Yeah.
And once we got on the island, it's much cheaper to actually hire an apartment for a long-term stay versus a holiday stay.
Yes.
So we were living on Picnic Bay. I'd walk out and have my breakfast every morning for $150 a week. Like insane, ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
So the army nurse who lived above us, she came down and she said to me, so how do you go to the toilet? No introduction, no hello, how are you?
What was her indication that she needed to ask you that question?
Oh, because prior to being in the wheelchair, I walked like a helicopter, I suppose. I moved from side to side.
With sticks?
and no prior to sticks.
Okay.
I didn't get sticks until I became pregnant with my son, which was 27. So this is 2 years later.
Yeah.
The whole pregnancy changed the balance in my body. Yeah. So she had seen me walking out front across to Picnic Bay, and she was like, army nurse.
Yeah.
So,
very practical.
Very practical. Why she need to know particularly about how to toilet myself is beyond me. And I didn't have the confidence then to say, none of your business.
Yeah.
You get indoctrinated within the medical framework that you answer any question about medical stuff with ease because you don't have any boundaries or barriers attached to it. Not so much now. If anyone now asks me, I'd tell them to stick it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we learn that and we practice that. Anyway, so I told her and she's like, oh, okay. And because I have a stoma in a bag, which I've had since I was 3 years of age.
For those people who don't know what that is, can you explain?
Yes. It meant that at a young age, it was seen that my bladder wasn't able to control itself due to lack of muscles. Spina bifida. So L4, L5 is where my spine opens and the nerves come out, causing a lump. That means that L4, L5, which is kidneys, bowels, bladder, anything from the waist down, there's partial paraplegia. It was interesting, and I still to this day find it makes me a little angry, I think, at if I was in another state, I wouldn't have got a stoma and bag, but because I was in Victoria at the Royal Children's, they gave me a stoma and a bag.
And that was their all-round process for anyone with spina bifida?
At L4, L5, who was actually who didn't have any bladder control.
Yeah.
Or a minimum bladder control.
Yeah.
So what that means is it stopped my bladder growing, so I couldn't actually change to any other form of equipment later on down the track. So they cut a small bit of intestine, they put it on your stomach, on the external part of your stomach, and then they join your ureters, which normally would join to your bladder. They go from your kidney to your bladder, but they go from the kidney to the actual small intestine that sits on the surface of your skin.
Yeah.
So I had a major issue in high school where I had an ulcer formed on that.
Oh.
And so I would just get bags of blood. It was just disgusting. So anyway, I had to go and have that revised. That being said, that caused a whole, so year 7, 8 and 9, truly, I didn't spend a lot of time at school.
So it's still all going to the children's not any work here in Bendigo?
No. Once you've got a specialist at the Royal Children's, you're pretty much allowed to go there till you're 21 if you've got a birth defect, because they're also taking statistics on you the whole time you're there as well. So
because it's a teaching hospital as well, isn't it?
It is a teaching hospital. Often the specialists are doing papers on you. The orthopaedic ones often did them on spina bifidas because our hips form differently to your hips, et cetera, et cetera. So I missed a lot of schooling, year 7, 8 and 9, which I do believe has affected me as far as my writing and my cognitive comprehension ability is concerned. I'm very intelligent, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But so it affected you in that you have to double check your spelling, grammar, that kind of stuff, because they were formative years of learning that sort of thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
And even though it was the 80s and I don't think we did a lot about grammar, or we did a lot of grammar within the school system, I do know that I write sentences back to front. Now, I don't know whether that's a form of dyslexia that I haven't.
I'm feeling like it could be.
But I haven't been diagnosed for it. Oh, my God, let's stick another label on it.
Let's just leave that for now.
Let's not. But, and the ability to tell a story, I'm very black and white, so I don't know how to flourish things, which if you hear me talking, you'll get there and go, sure. But my ability to talk and my ability to write are two separate entities.
Yeah. If you're a diary keeper and a dream journalist, and you have trouble writing, how do you work it out? Does the story make sense to you as you write it, or do you correct it and just go back through and put it in an order that is more mainstream?
In answer to your question, what I do is I'll do it all in point form first, so all the actions that have taken place. Then when I'm writing it, because I've got a computer just for writing, which I don't put on the internet, and that is then I will develop it and I will set scenes, but that's come from reading books and watching movies and understanding that people need to know what surrounds them. A narrative isn't just, and doing some workshops like with Hay House and listening to Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, started with her. And now this one is called The Vein of Gold, A Journey to Your Creative Heart. Fantastic. Found it better than The Artist's Way, to be honest.
So the only thing I remember about The Artist's Way at the time, and it was a recommended book by a friend, was that just write every day.
Morning pages.
Yeah, and it's practice and routine, and I think that's a good practice.
But I think it's a great mental health practice.
Yeah.
I found after my work cover injury, which I was so inundated with thought processes and injustices and having to do practicalities, that just doing the morning pages allowed me to clear my mind slightly by doing the supermarket list of things that I need to action, which was great. The other book, which I would have to say is fantastic, is The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Writers, by Christopher Vogler, Vogler.
So by mythical stories, does it mean like archetypes?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's archetypes. It's the soul's journey. The journey, and it goes full circle. You've got to, be tested on that journey, and you've got to come to some sort of conclusion and learn something at the end, blah, blah, blah. So it's the kind of stuff that's used in every movie in Hollywood at this point in time.
So you're still writing, you're still journaling, all that sort of stuff. What's your art practice?
This actually leads into my art practice. I don't paint and not write. They're both aspects. So in the future, when I actually have exhibitions, there'll be writings to go with every painting.
And audio description, obviously.
Of course. I was just going to say that before you rudely interrupted me. She's quick off the mark, folks.
No, hang on. We're just really trying to outdo each other.
She's so cheeky. Yeah, so all of that. And I would love to make sure that it is completely accessible for as many people as possible.
Yeah, and that's the goal, for as many as possible, because I think if you set yourself the challenge of saying for everybody, which that is a beautiful goal, and that is, the ultimate goal, but it can often be the paralysing goal if you can't get to that point of making sure, you
have to be a little bit responsible for yourself and your own needs. Because no one in this world is going to be able to assess your needs or think about your needs more than yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. So even though I went on a holiday just recently, a good friend of mine has a portable ramp, and she bought the portable ramp because you never know. We never used it, but you never know when you're going to need it. Yeah. So that was another story. Let's talk about businesses that actually say that they are accessible and they're not. Let's talk about businesses that apply for funding and say that they are and use their funding for access, which is just to pat themselves on the back. Let's not. I might get angry.
Well,
I might be
let's talk. No, well, let's talk about where things can be done well and things can be done with little expense. These things don't have to be like the big thing. It doesn't have to be the most accessible bathroom or whatever.
No.
And I do want accessible bathrooms, but these small gestures of, I've got a ramp, it will work.
Yeah.
I can get you in here. You can be with your friends.
And it's interesting because I remember being on a board and that being discussed as an option. And it was saying that there was policies from, first of all, the businesses were saying that they wanted to actually have funding available to them to get them. Fair enough. Even though I would see it as a tax deduction. It was also seen as an issue because of the pavement policies in front of shops and them needing to be
clear for cane use and all that sort of stuff.
But it's like it's something that you're putting down and picking up in a matter of 5 minutes, so. You
can argue those sort of points all the time, but if someone's just plonking down a ramp, you go inside, it gets picked up, whatever.
And so those little things make such a huge difference because what you feel like you're seen. You feel like for example, I went to a shop up in Mullumbimby and the step was maybe 20 centimetres high.
Yeah.
So I can flip my front wheel up one step, but that there was no way I was getting the back wheel up. So I had to get a friend to lift, and she's a little short ass like myself. She had to lift the wheelchair up and push forward, and trying to get, that's a very unusual movement forward for people. And then lifting up and forward.
Yeah.
And you get to the stage, there was not a dressing room that I could try. So I just was stripping off in the shop, because you get to the stage when you've had your body shown and viewed and poked and prodded, and you are an experiment, that you actually have no boundaries about just taking your clothes off in the middle of a shop. Do you know what I mean? Because I was trying something on. It wasn't just random. I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't just showing off.
No. Oh, look at this roll. Happy. Look at my tan lines. Yeah.
I just think it's not that difficult. Like a lot of stuff is not that difficult, like aisle widths, making an accessible change room. All of those things have been built up over years and years and years of resistance to seem like a big financial, inconvenience, instead of an investment in someone who's going to spend money if they can buy clothes in your shop.
Absolutely. And if I will not spend money in a shop, depending. There was this beautiful crystal shop. There were 2 steps to get me in. The actual lady who was on the phone talking to somebody. Well, I stood there for about on the wheels, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. A man went past and said, "Do you need a hand getting in?" I went, No, I'm just waiting for somebody. But what I was doing, I was testing to see if that actual woman was going to engage with me or not, because I have money to burn, and she lost the sale. So, which is completely fine, because I won't, if somebody is not engaging with me, then I won't spend money there. It's just,
no.
And the people who are with me won't spend money there either.
No, you spread the word.
Absolutely.
Bring you back from holidays back to here living in regional Victoria.
Yeah.
As a regional woman, I mean, what you were saying earlier was that most of your care was at the Royal Children's Hospital, so that incurred a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So a lot of family involvement. It incurred a lot of travel, but probably incurred a lot of organisation, probably traditionally from guessing your age, mainly your mother, around childcare and stuff.
Yeah.
While you were on the road, that kind of thing. What were your siblings like with you?
They are incorrigible is what they are. They're cheeky little monkeys.
Yeah.
They would actually do, they're gorgeous and they're supportive as much as I will allow them to be. They would say that I'm far too independent and don't actually say when I need help, which drives them a little bit to distraction at times, because if I'm in trauma or pain, I shut down. I go into the cave. So in answer to your question, yes, I have a father and a mother. Every year I would have to go to the Royal Children's Hospital for a checkup, which would be an all-day event, and I would vomit in the car the whole way down. And everyone would go,
because of nerves?
Nerves. We called it car sickness, but I didn't realise that my body actually shut down. So I have many faces that I put on as presenting, which I think a lot of people with disabilities do. But it never ceases to amaze me when I pull out a facade and someone goes, "Oh, you're dealing with that very well." And I was going, "Yeah, I'm actually dying inside."
Can I ask you, when you had Joseph,
Yeah.
Did you have a cesarean?
Yes, elective cesarean, but I knew that would happen because my pelvis is naturally different because of the spina bifida.
Yeah.
So there was no choice or option.
Prior to the cesarean, did you do the shutdown?
No. Actually,
as in the quiet inward facing rather than the outward facing? Yes
and no. I was in a domestic violence situation with his biological father, which didn't sort of manifest. It was emotionally volatile then. So I was internal anyway because of that. And I was living out in a property. We'd been isolated, the typical, stuff that occurs through violent situations. And so I was very aware of Joseph in my stomach and what he was doing. I always knew he was a boy, even though I didn't have
any tests.
Yeah. And I didn't have any tests to see whether he had spina bifida or not either. I didn't do any of those things.
Now tell me why. Because there's all different schools of thought.
Well, I got my period during the whole first trimester. So I didn't actually know I was pregnant until I was 4 months pregnant, until I went to put those jeans on and went, oh, my God, hello, there's 2 inches in the middle of that zip. I can't. So he wasn't planned. That being said, I always knew, even though at the Children's Hospital they'd said, if ever you're going to get pregnant, you need to take copious amounts of, and they would have given me the stats at the time, but I can't remember them, of folic acid or folate, etc., 3 months prior to conception. What I had been doing is I'd been going to the gym and taking large quantities of vitamin B, multivitamins, etc. So that could be the reason why he doesn't have a congenital disability. I don't know, but my sisters also needed to make sure that they were taking prior to their pregnancies large amounts of folate as well. But they have no idea why spina bifida is caused. So.
No, is it anywhere else in your family?
No, not historically.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't in the generations of the grandparents nor in great-grandparents. So
before that, who knew?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no record. It's not like it's on the census. Is there a disability in your house?
I mean, even on the census, basically the disability question is, does someone help you out at home? There's 2 questions, and one is, do you receive assistance or support at home is one of the disability questions.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the other one is, but it's pathetic.
Yeah.
So there's no, what disabilities are people getting? Or, are we sorted out into our sensory, physical, psychosocial?
And I wonder if that's because they get the stats from other areas, like the Royal Children's Hospital, etc., as far as that's record keeping, as far as...
But there's all the acquired disabilities,
for sure.
ABIs and whatever. So, I mean, there has to be some way to collect that, but I don't know who's... Someone will listen to this one day and be shouting at the, machine going,
this is how you do it.
You God, you're too old, you idiots.
This is how you do it, baby. And maybe it's like they go to TAC, WorkSafe, GPs, there'll be they'll have their own little internal medical self.
I don't know. You're more of a believer than me.
I am. I'm a believer. I'm a believer of spirit over religion. Thanks.
So Joseph's 27?
He's 28.
28.
Just got back from his first tour of Europe and loved it so much that he's like, I have to go back.
And is he living in central Victoria too?
Yeah, he lives like 3 blocks away.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
That's good.
Mind you, we're never in each other's pockets. Do you know what I mean? We've never had that relationship, even though I was a sole parent, mainly because it's about him. He needs to have his own life, his own friends.
So tell me how it was being a sole parent with a disability in regional Victoria.
Exhausting, absolutely exhausting, especially also because I was doing so I had Joe separated from my partner because he was physically violent. So that court case system, change of name, the whole shebang. Then I went up to Mullumbimby with Joe. I'd lived up there before and I needed to find my joie de vivre. I needed to find my joy again.
Yeah.
And so I went up there. I met a friend of a friend was moving from Hepburn or Daylesford, and we said we'd share a house. And he had a daughter. I had my son. We thought that would be amicable. And so we did. So we shared a house for a few months. And when I say a few months, it would have been like 6 months to a year. And then the ease for me was that Joseph was breastfed for the first year and a half, I think. So there was no needing to, I think if I had to boil bottles and do this and do that, it would have just been horrific. I had him in a pram majority of the time, so I could move. He would even sleep next to me in the bed in a pram as a baby. It's just what you used to. And I think I have come from I have a tribal mindset in that it's important to have, I didn't immunise my child at the immunisation dates. It's when he was more mature, when I knew his immune system was more kicked in. I believe in it takes a village to raise a child, but at the same time, For example, when we're in Mullumbimby and I need to go to the supermarket and Joseph was 2, I would never have a harness on him. I just don't believe in constraining a child like that.
Yeah.
I would not like it for myself, so why would I do it to somebody else? But he ran down the street and I had to say there was a woman down the end, grab that child.
Yeah.
And one person didn't, but another mother behind that, who was obviously a grandmother, she knew to step in and because when they make a runner at 2 years of age, they're just testing the boundaries. So that was when
it's not naughty. It's
just
running.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I realised that he needed to run. That's what I realised. I really tried to, where I was physically unable to do the running, the ball kicking, whatever, it was about putting him into sports. It was about peer development. But
a lot of that is lonely work when you're on your own, I think.
Well, I made sure that I was very much part of the classroom and very involved with his friends. So it was things like, because I've always had a courageous spirit in that I don't mind being the first one to speak. I don't mind being the first one to move forward. I've always tried things for others so I could then give them information so if they wanted to do it, they can do it with a little bit more ease in their heart. Yeah. It's just, I think it comes from a Scottish grandmother, to be honest. She was a communist and walked with the the men and so I think that chutzpah comes from her. She was loud, short and proud, and I think that's me to a T.
Now, speaking of loud, short and proud,
yes,
you've got a performance and creative arts background.
Yeah.
So you were on TV for I don't know how many years. What was
8 years?
8 years. So 8 years. No Limits was pretty much a groundbreaking show. I really, really loved it. I thought, this is excellent. Like, here are people talking about their bodies, fun things, difficult things, ridiculous things. What was that experience like?
Well,
and how did you get there?
Yeah, let me just take you the lead up. So I was working with the Futures for Young Adults program, which was a pathway that,
18 to 21.
18 to 21, bridge building, where do you want to go, what do you want to do? And there was a level of funding attached to that. I noticed with I work between Bendigo, Castlemaine, and Maryborough.
Castlemaine,
and Maryborough. So I had 80 people on my books, and I noticed within all of those people that none of them had social skills, adult social skills. And I was just like, they don't know how to go to a pub. They don't know how to go out to an event. They don't know how to buy a ticket. What's going on here? And I am doing a wide brushstroke when I'm saying that. Yeah. So I decided to set up Creatability with, in conjunction with Club Wild from Melbourne, and because they had skills within the dance party scene.
Yeah.
And also another John Willis at a business here in Bendigo, and to set up social events in actual real pub situations. And they're adults. They could buy a beer if they wanted to. There can be support staff there, and just develop those skills. And out of that, there has sprung marriages, and they've sprung, people developing in a whole lot of different areas. Then, so part of my scope there was that I would try things that others may want to try in the future, so I could then come back and go, then this needs to occur, this needs to occur, this occur. Because I was a support needs assessor. So I wanted to evaluate what support needs may be needed in those environments. Yeah. TV and film was an area that hadn't even been touched. So I saw an ad for it.
Where did you see the ad?
I don't even know.
Because I don't even reckon you would have got Channel 31 here.
Oh, no, we didn't get Channel 31. I don't even know where they advertised. I think I was on because there was some form of group chat kind of things. And let me tell you, I wasn't into disability or acknowledged my own true disability until I started Creatability.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to Melbourne. And so there must have been like a disability chat site on the internet somewhere that I linked in with. That has to be it. And I applied, got an interview, and I interviewed, I think, with Stella and George. It was a group interview. Yeah. And we all looked great on behind the camera together.
And you all sounded great.
And we had an instant rapport. Just there was a joyful sort of banter between us all, which was great. And I was probably, am I 10 or 15 years older? So I already had a child. I'd been to university. Was working in the sector, not-for-profit sector, in disability. I think Stella at the time was in teaching. George had finished his degree. He was a doctor.
He was a doctor, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a beautiful concept that allowed us all to flourish, which was great, but that would not without difficulties.
Well, I think doing community arts is a really, really interesting space, but doing community disability arts is a more interesting space because there's an expectation that people with disability will do stuff without remuneration or recognition. And I have a huge problem with that, but it seems to be the nature of the beast. It's getting way, way better, and, you know, like
As it should.
As it should. But there was a period of time where you could get a Coles or Myer voucher for participating in something.
I mean, how fucking offensive is that? I've just given you my skills, my abilities, my knowledge, my information, and I received nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it's and first of all, you equate it in your mind as going, okay, I'm learning skills here, I'm networking. There's lots of soft opportunities that you're getting, what I call soft opportunities that you're getting from it. But that only goes so far. And then especially if I was the only one, there was a few others that were rural, maybe around the Frankston area, that kind of thing. But for me, it was a 4-hour trip. And initially in the first couple of years, I wasn't getting petrol money, I wasn't getting food money, I wasn't getting clothing money. It was all out-of-pocket expenses.
Yeah.
And then that changed depending on the funding applications and what monies came through. But, you know, it should have been supported. It really should have been. It was being aired on Channel 31 nationally. It was winning awards.
Yes.
You know, and it really set the groundwork for quite a few people to jump off and further their careers, which was fantastic. That being said, it was an exhausting day. It would take 2 weeks to recover from. You would be doing 2 hours drive down. It would be hair and makeup, do 4 shows, no script. You got an idea of who was being interviewed, etc. 2 weeks prior, you had to do your own research on those individuals. Yeah, and that's what it was. It was fly by the seat of your pants.
How did it end?
It continued on after I left. I left, I think, because after my work cover injury, and the last show I did was actually me in hospital having surgery. I did it with a cash, and I've never watched it. I've never watched it. I probably never will watch it.
Yeah.
No Limits itself was a disability-specific talk show, interview show, discussing disability in all different frameworks in our lives, as well as people who came in, who were interviewed. We had engineers from Western Australia, where there was one motorbike that Stella was on the motorbike behind me.
Yes. I've seen that photo. That should be framed. That's
I know,
awesome.
It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
the wheels, you would come to a stoplight and the wheels would come down like training wheels on the motorbike, but give stability.
Oh, you actually rode it?
No, we didn't. No, we were
Jesus.
sitting on it. My legs can't touch the ground. I have ridden a motorbike before, but it was a Pee-wee 50.
Yeah.
Big difference. Big difference. And that was through a bush block. But yes, that is what it was. And so there would normally be 3 people on the panel. Somebody would be chosen as the main host for that show. And then we'd have, you know, there might have been some filmography that had been done on site out somewhere, you know, maybe looking at some Paralympic kind of things in an oval or I don't know, whatever. So, and then there was, you know, us flying off in rockets at the beginning and the start of the show.
To find out more about Women with Disabilities Victoria, go to wdv.org.au. So with the whole No Limits thing, I'm really interested that you applied for it. I mean, I know you're a natural performer and you're a singer and you're from a family of creatives. And you went and applied for a show that was around people with disability. How did that work for you?
What I found interesting, Liz, is I went under the pretense that I was going to learn what was needed for other people to possibly be in my position. You know, what were the access needs for if any of my individuals from Bendigo wanted to join in? And what I found was not only a peer group of disabled people, but that I realised that I was disabled and that I'd been living not necessarily a lie, but my coping mechanism was to not disassociate from my disability, but sort of pigeonhole it over there. And only when I ever hurt myself or which happens often when you've got partial paraplegia and things turn from a small cut into an ulcer very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Everything goes to surgery. There's always a domino effect from everything. That I found myself within that. So that's probably another reason when I said about a soft outcome for me was that I learnt about myself. Mind you, I did actually get some ableism from the other people with disabilities in that I was seen as not disabled enough. Now,
Yeah,
well, I'm not quite sure where that fucking mindset comes from because it's like, who is anybody to judge anybody?
I know where it comes from. It comes from the fact that if you appear to be coping or if you appear to be happy or if you appear to manage in public, then there is this perception that life is easier for you than for them.
Which is a crock of shit because what you're doing is better at masking, which is a mental health issue.
Yeah.
You know, it's that you've had incredible amounts of trauma and that to survive, you've put on the social mask, which I know this is exactly what I do, in a hospital environment, sit up with the nurses, make sure that you have great relationships with the nurses so your ability to survive is better. It is a survival coping mechanism. So it never ceases to amaze me how people come up with those perceptions. So it wasn't until I actually spoke about my stoma and my hospitalisation, my bag and blah, 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 that people went, oh, you actually are disabled enough. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, atrocious. So anyway, that being said, I found myself and I recognised myself. But that was never discussed within the show. And I don't think our lives... I hate surface conversations. It's like, don't give me the surface. I always want to see what's the meat, what's underneath. And because for so long I moved around Bendigo thinking, am I the only disabled person who's actually going out here? Of course, there's invisible disabilities and I understand that.
But there isn't much high-level visible disability here even now. No. I do see more wheelchairs and I do see more people with other aids and I've seen people with canes and things like that.
Yeah, in the last 10 years.
Yes, but there isn't a high level of volume and I think that's why it's undervalued here, that, unless there's a lot of you, we really don't have to do much. And I think what happens is people stay home.
I agree. Yeah, and it's like having to train people to think outside of themselves. Where we don't think outside of ourselves. But I think as a disabled person, because we've got a certain aspect of advocacy and activism, we have to think outside of just ourselves. Like just recently I went to on holidays and I had the general manager of the resort asking me, you know, how are you finding access and what are you finding accessible and rah, rah, rah. And I was like, I don't want to think in my mind. I'm not saying this to him. I'm going, I don't want to think about this. I've actually gone on holidays to remove myself from my disability, which is all-encompassing, hypervigilant. I'm hypervigilant anyway, and now I need to put on like the Edward de Bono hat of thinking about access needs for other people as well as myself, which I do as a default. I never just think about myself in that context.
But you would potentially write a review when you came home.
I'm going to give a feedback sheet, absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily want to discuss your whole life and your personal stuff unless there's a problem. While you're on holiday.
Which I'd already done twice while I was there.
Yeah.
I've got a loud voice. I can be assertive. Again, it's a facade. It's not the natural me. I'm actually a natural introvert, not an extrovert. So it takes me a lot of energy to present and be there. It's much easier for me to be on stage in front of 1,000 people versus, the one-to-one interactions.
Yeah.
So, and the parting of the waves, that wave that occurs when you're going through a line of people. I actually said to this girl as she saw that I was there and sort of moved off to to the side away from me. I said, I'm not contagious. And another woman said, oh, I want one of those. And I was just like, no, you don't. So there's still this element of my legs or your sight or how others perceive the world through their disabilities is still a little bit fun, still a little bit left of centre, still a little, it's not taken seriously.
Particularly if you seem to be a person
Happy.
that manages or a person that is happy.
Yeah. Which takes a lot of fucking work, as we know.
Yeah.
A lot of planning, a lot of research. Like if someone says to me, are we going out for dinner? And I've got some friends who think about this, they'll get there and go, we're at this restaurant, there's an accessible park out the front, you just need to roll in. And I'm just like, that is so fresh and amazing.
Which it shouldn't be.
Which it shouldn't be.
No,
it shouldn't be. If you want my company as I want your company, then can we just all think about these things, Yeah, so it truly is. Every disability has their different, like my car is my legs. If people take it or I don't have them, I feel vulnerable. I feel less able to move. I feel unseen. I feel like everything's ripped away from me at that point in time. So it's a huge thing for me to lend my car to somebody else, or B, for it to be away getting, fixed or serviced or whatever. Because the idea of using taxis, I can use a taxi, but again, because I've got an anxiety disorder, which is connected to my work cover issue and accident, that I get so anxious prior to having to use any of those scenarios, because if I don't specify that I need a sedan, because a wheelchair taxi, they don't have shockers. So because I've got a pin in my hip and my spine is my issue, that I end up in extraordinary pain after a small taxi ride in an accessible taxi. And I'll never forget, we were in a meeting once and a taxi company here in Bendigo actually verbally assaulted me because they said to me, you don't use our accessible taxis anyway. Well, they'd looked me up, obviously, but there was a reason, and I said at the time, that's because your accessible taxis cause me incredible pain. But he was talking about the experience of Uber and other share drive businesses overtaking, and were they going to be accessible? And they were saying, no, only taxis were going to be accessible. Well, we now know Uber's accessible, and, there's now another taxi company here in Bendigo. And so that's broadened that spectrum. But, it's hypervigilance is disability. Disability is all-encompassing unless you're in your space, which you've designed yourself, that is set up for you. Otherwise, for me, I'm looking at bumps in the road. I'm looking at guttering. Because if my wheelchair gets buggered from going over a gutter, again, I'm stuck in the house, can't move for a couple of weeks till it gets fixed.
Yeah, it's great. Like your home is highly accessible. You know what your limits are as far as leaving the house and things like that. Where do you paint? And where do you do your creative process here in your home, or have you got a studio?
I haven't got a studio because I haven't found any accessible as yet. I'm going to actually talk to the university and see La Trobe and see whether there's an option of me as an outsider to, even though I would be considered alumni, to see whether I could actually use one of their studios ongoing and paying for it. La Trobe Art Institute in View Street.
Yeah.
They offered me a residency in return to talk about and write a review on access for their building, which I did, which they've actioned. So kudos to them. What I found was phenomenal at the time was access to doctors and people who have great credit within the university or the academic world and could give me feedback on my work, which I critique, which I wasn't able to get in the university or outside of it in any other way. And so that was phenomenal, and I really was incredibly thankful of that opportunity. My sister got cancer at the time, so I wasn't able to make as great an opportunity or use it as best as I could because I wanted to be there for her. But what I've done since is actually ring around to find out whether there's any other accessible residencies, of which there aren't. There's different ones for like writing and but none for the visual arts. And there's a different thing. You need windows, you need a certain light when you're actually painting.
But do you think that's a regional thing, that we're very short of that kind of space and input, and that there's a lot of metro money going into art spaces
in the city?
In the city.
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. I've heard since that Monash Uni has made an accessible residency next to Monash Uni, and maybe they're doing it just for their students. But there needs, Arts Australia need to actually look at that. I actually contacted Arts Australia and asked them, do they know of any accessible residencies? They didn't get back to me. So, you know, it's frustrating because I know part of my actual voice within the arts is about spirituality in place. So every time I go to a different space, a different environment, I'm actually capturing that through my art. There's also other things I do, which is called my worthies, which is people who have influenced my life historically. So I've done portraits around them. And then
like who?
Well, we've got Frida here.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
There is Lyda Angelis, who's actually Law. She's a white witch and philosopher. There is Stella, of course, because, of course, I work with her on No Limits. So I've just started that process. So there's more to come as far as the portraits are concerned. I also am looking at the circle in an abstract. Wesley Kandinsky is one of my favourites, as well as Hilma Uf Klint. So she actually set up a circle with her 5 people, and they actually meditated, and she channeled art, which has been, you know, shown at the Guggenheim, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm all about colour. I'm exploring the circle as a Zen circle at the moment, as in a self-portrait in abstract fashion, and wabi-sabi, which is like imperfection.
To finish up, would you say you are a proud disabled woman, or would you?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say I'm a proud disabled woman. I would say that my disability does define me, but it's not all of me. And it impacts on my physical world, but it doesn't impact my spiritual world and my internal world. So, which I find that a paradox at times, because how I present to the world is very physical, and yet there's a whole nother aspect of self going on inside.
Sara McQueenie, thank you very much. It's been lovely being with you today, spending all this time with you and having a chat about your life. So thank you. Thank
you, my love. It's been good to see you again, Lizzie. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
You can check out Sara's artwork on Instagram at SaraMCQ_art or at crochet_by_Queenie.